Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 11th episode of CelebWorx Live, where the only veggies we eat are from Pamela Isley's garden. I'm Christopher Arsaga.
I'm Nery Lemus. Thanks for joining us.
Before we bring on our special guest, we want to address the situation that's going on right now. We want everybody to understand that we're doing this because we want people to kind of get away from it just for a couple minutes. I mean, there's a lot of bad things going on right now, but we want everybody to remember that you need to care for each other. We need to love for each other. We need to have understanding for each other. And we need to make this situation a growing experience and make sure that we make this world a better place going forward.
Absolutely. And along that sentiment, if you are having a problem sort of dealing with the situation, please reach out to somebody. It takes very little to reach out, and sometimes it's just getting over that first hurdle. And we're all in this together, and it's a matter of sharing our collective experience and getting through it as a group. So we hope you guys all enjoy this episode. I'm pleased to bring on our friend and close company advisor to the program. She bridges the gap between business and technology during her daytime job. Her side title is the founder of Voice Chasers. Kristy Sproul is a highly respected leader, producer, and subject matter expert in the voiceover technology and travel industries. She founded Voice Chasers in 1996. Voice Chasers is one of the leading online destinations for information relating to voice acting. It's the largest comprehensive database which includes voice actor profiles, headshots, demos, voiceographies, and more, and has become an accurate resource for professionals and enthusiasts alike. And since their inception in 1996, Voice Chasers has been instrumental in increasing awareness of and interest in the voiceover community and industry and the talented members of the voice acting community. In 2016, Christie produced Voice Actors Rocks, a charity concert held at the world-famous Whiskey A Go-Go that featured musicians within the voiceover world, raising over $5,000 for the VH1 Save the Music Foundation. Christie briefly studied music technology at NYU before earning her bachelor's degree in computer science from Rollins College. Today, she is a technology manager in the hospitality industry and resides in Phoenix, Arizona with her husband and 2 children. She's one of my keto buddies. I take my yearly self-vacation with her and her family in Phoenix, which I'm still trying to figure out for this year once we can fly. I miss the scorpion hunting with her and her husband. And when we were just starting out in this business, we sat with Christie at a coffee shop down the street from where I live, and we talked for almost 4 hours. And it was the moment that I knew she would be a long lifetime friend. Please welcome Kristy Sproul to the program.
Yay, Christy!
Hi, Christy.
Hey, Christy.
Hi.
It's our pleasure. Our pleasure.
So to the general public, if you have any questions for Christy or for us, please post them on the official stream. And today we will answer them as we go along and if we feel like it.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I'm an open book, so whatever you want to ask.
Great. So, Christy, I'm going to start us off. What inspired you to start Voice Chasers?
Well, let's see. It was probably 93, 94. If you remember, there was a show called Animaniacs on at the time. I know you guys know it well. And, yeah. And I was also a big Ninja Turtle fan, too, and still am. And my best friend and I, Allie, she and I were watching Animaniacs. She said, Yakko sounds a lot like Raphael from Ninja Turtles. And I said, no, that's impossible. That's impossible. And as you know, back then, I mean, there was hardly any resource at the time. I think IMDb was barely even there, but most people weren't even on the World Wide Web yet. I was on a service called Prodigy. I don't know if you remember Prodigy.
I don't.
Sort of like AOL. It's CompuServe, that kind of era. So I started in 1992. That was my first time on the internet. Was 92. And so what happened was with Animaniacs, the great thing about that show was that not only was it a great show, but in the credits, it was one of the few shows at the time that had the character and the actor listed in the credits together. Typically, it was just a big block of names. You don't know who's who's doing the voice. And so that became kind of the keystone. So we would, tape every show on at the time. I would say, okay, these are the same names that are in this show, and this show, and this show. Now I know they're this character in this show, so I'm gonna rewind the tape, listen again for that person until I hear them, and then I write the character name down. So it became just this OCD category, cataloging these people. And so I had a big stack of names, in by actor and also by show, cross-referencing them. And on Prodigy, there was a small group of us that kind of just amassed all this data. So we would just go out, we would listen, we went to the library, we, got, newspaper articles and books and all kinds of stuff, just nerding out over this stuff. Because who are these people? And you would see just the same names over and over again, right? Rob Paulson, Jim Cummings, Frank Welker, Tress McNeil, same people over and over and over again.
Pat Fraley.
Pat Fraley. There's a small group, but there's a lot, same names. And so, so then I'm like, what am I going to do with all this data? I have all this data. So I learned how to code, taught myself how to code, and put it up on my parents' server. They gave us a small, and this was right after Prodigy. So this was 1996. My parents had a small bit of, space on their web server. They gave, the ISP gave them on the web server, put the data up there. And then people started contacting me because they would search for themselves and then they would find a list of their credits. So the first person that ever contacted me was Joe Lasky, who was the voice of Daffy Duck for many years. He sent me an email and I was like, whoa, it's Joe Lasky. I know this name because I've seen it 100 times. And so he's like, here's my headshot. Here's my demo. Here's my list of credits. Now I have actual factual data. And it just kind of blew up because people would keep, Bob Bergen would find them. They would email me, people keep wanting, and it was kind of free promotion for them, right? So it was a way for them to get promotion on the internet. So did that and it just kind of blew up. We got the domain name finally in 97 or 98, I think. Yeah. And then I started going to Comic-Cons but while I was doing all this stuff, I was like, all these people are so freaking talented and nobody knows who these people are. How is that possible?
Yeah.
And I'm like, we need to spread awareness of who these people are and their talent. So I started going to Comic-Cons. So I went to San Diego Comic-Con, first show ever, 1998, with a group of friends of mine. And I met, Bob Bergen. I think Tom Kane was there. Greg Berger was there at my first show. Greg Berg might have been there.
Yeah, Greg Berg.
And, and a bunch of other people. And I'm like, not only are they the most talented people, but they're really, honestly, the most genuine, as you know, the most genuine, kind, talented people on the planet. And like, now we really got to do something. So,
true.
So the site just kind of blew up and people started finding us, not only the talent, but also fans of these people. Because apparently, people had the same, experience as me, where they didn't know who these people were. They would look them up, and then they realized how much work they've actually done.
Right.
So yeah, and so that's kind of how it came, and that was 20 whatever years ago now.
Wow.
You were probably working pretty overtime for Frank, right? You were like,
yeah.
Oh my God, he's in everything.
And back there when I was coding, it was all static, so there was no dynamic content. It was not a database. It was editing every single person's HTML file, editing every single show's HTML file every time I would hit. And so you can imagine, I would just sit there. My parents, who I think are watching, they would get frustrated. This is not going to, make you money. What are you doing? It was a hobby. It was a labor of love for me.
Yeah, you know what? You just took the words out of my mouth. I would just say it's a labor of love because I feel like Nery and I feel the same way about what we do. We work our butts off, but we do this because we love it. And it makes it that much more rewarding when things come up.
Absolutely. And it's so funny is people think, when we got started, they think that we were an instant success. I mean, in the first few years, we were actually spending more money out of pocket than we were making.
We lost a lot of money the first couple of years. I mean, a lot of money. Like you know me, and I don't know if anybody else knows this about me and Nery, but we have massive, and when I say massive, like we're talking like if you saw it, you have a heart attack type collections. Like we're talking stuff where you'd be like, how does a human own something like that? That's crazy. And we would sell that stuff to support what we were doing to get to where we are. We had to sacrifice a lot.
Yeah, you do whatever you have to do it's a passion, right?
Absolutely.
You don't expect anything back from it. You just love it so much that you just want to do it all the time.
Absolutely, 100%.
And a lot of,
well, go ahead.
a lot of the things that you said, Christy, is, I mean, I know that Voice Chasers, that was actually one of the websites I used early on, because there really was no website to go for voiceover talent. So when my brother and I were really young, we wanted to learn more about voice actors and learn more about their voiceographies and sort of get an in-depth look at some of the characters that we fell in love with when we were kids. One of the big things for me is like Courage the Cowardly Dog. Like, so Will Ryan, like wasn't a lot of information on Will Ryan at that time. And he ended up being like the voice of the Duck Brothers on Courage the Cowardly Dog and The Big Toe and little things like that. Little things like that. People would not know who was the voice of that character. So I mean, it's people like you that actually gave that information to the industry and to fans.
Even commercials and stuff, you just hear somebody and you're like, oh, wait, I recognize that person. I don't know who it is. And that's part of the reason why we started, just as a resource so people could look things up. And,
it's funny because I think of, and I know that you're going to think this is unrelated when I say it, but I think of Gary Oldman. And you look at Gary Oldman as an actor and you go, man, look at all the different things that guy's done. Like he's like a chameleon. But these people do it. And it has just as much meaning, but they do it with just their voice. They make you care about a cartoon character. That is so incredible to think about. Somebody like, when the first time that Michael Bell told me that he was the voice of Butter from the Parquet commercials, I was like, what? Are you kidding me? Duke from G.I. Joe is Butter. Like, what?
And it just shows their amount of talent. And like I said, nobody knows who they are. They have more talent in their pinky finger than most on-camera actors have, because they're good character actors and they're never seen. And, the fact they're never seen, I think, leads to the just not having an ego.
Well, it's funny because what you were pointing out about how you had to go and, each cartoon at the end, it just would say the names and it wouldn't say which characters. It showed back then that they didn't really even look at voice actors as kind of like an actual actor or something to be respected almost. And I respect them that much more because of how talented they are. I mean,
and I think it's still a struggle today too. I mean, they're not always invited to the red carpet on stuff they worked on. Like this was 20 years ago now, but even Space Jam, I mean, Bob Burt, all the voiceover people that worked on that movie were not invited to the red carpet. Yeah, that's not cool. It's just, I don't understand.
We have clients that are in massive projects today, and I'm not going to name them, but one of our clients, because I don't want to get in trouble, one of our clients worked on the biggest and largest animation film. He had a part larger than 90% of the celebrity talent in that movie, and he was not invited to the red carpet. And I was the one that had to tell him that there was even a red carpet premiere taking place, so that his agent would go and try to get him a ticket.
I wonder who it was.
I wonder.
It's offensive to me, just because I know these people and know how hard that they work, and they don't get that recognition even from the studio sometimes.
And
I think the part that makes your story worse. Sorry, Nery. I think the part that makes your story worse is that if you know who the person is, and you're like, man, that guy is just like phenomenal. Like that guy, his name is just as big.
Yeah. That's what I was trying to say. Our client, the client who did not get invited to the movie premiere, is a larger name than 90% of the people that were in that movie. I think it's a little bit of a shame that happens, but I kind of wanted to jump ahead because I think you touched a very key point, which is essentially there's something so important with the talent that voice actors have, and I think goes deeper. It's a deeper psychology into why it's so important to people like you, me, and Chris. And I think it resonates back to like our childhood. And I think something as essential and important as voice, sort of for some reason, the voice recognition that we all have, it dives into our psyches. I mean, it goes far back to when we were kids and people that, were friendly and resonated with us, and it reminds us of home. I think there's a greater familial respect feeling, and it's just a comforting thing.
You see it at the shows now too. People, they're crying and how much these actors have meant to them that they probably didn't even know, who they were 10 years ago. now they get to meet them in person. They're such a huge part of their childhood, and that's why I love going to shows so much. Just seeing that, hearing people's stories, and sitting next to this talent, and it makes me, I'm getting all emotional, but
I think the one person, and all of us have done this out of all of our clients, this is not to single out anybody, we get this, but I think the biggest percentage of those stories that we hear is with Alan Oppenheimer. And, sitting next to him, and he's such a warm, generally like nice man, like, and he just comes across as nice. But then when those stories come out, he'll get up and he'll like walk around and like hug the person and stuff. And it's like,
there's a connection with that person that they didn't even know existed, right? When they're recording that stuff, they're not thinking about that.
Our heroes, and they're a hero outside of what like it's crazy. Like when you do that, like it's just.
And to go further along is that there's sometimes even a greater connection with just that voice than there is with some of these live action actors that act on screen and that we've seen all our lives.
Yeah.
So, that's what people don't understand. And I'm glad you're on to sort of explain that, so that convention promoters out there, Kristy, understand how important it is to have a voice actor at their convention.
For sure.
And that's why I love going to shows. And it's going to sound really cheesy, but it's like, what my life's work is happening right in front of me, because now people are lining up for, all this talent that, people didn't even know 10 years ago. And it makes me so happy to see that they're finally getting recognition and people knowing who they are and getting to interact with them. It's just, it's amazing to me.
And I'm so glad you mentioned life's work, Kristy. Can we dive a little bit back into your beginning and sort of how when you were growing up? What was your sort of your hopes and dreams? Like what was your dream profession?
Well, when it changed,
which is fine. We want to hear it.
Yeah. So what I thought I wanted to do was I thought I wanted to do film scoring. So I thought I wanted to write music for film. James Horner is a big a hero of mine. And so I thought that's what I wanted to do. So I went to NYU. I started in music technology, which kind of was the entryway into that field. And I got there, and I would hear, the person next to me in the practice room, and I would be like, I can't compete with these people. I'm not as good as these people. There's no way I can compete. So it was kind of big fish in small pond to small fish in big pond. And all of a sudden I was like, I'm not cut out for this. And not only that, but if I was to try to get a career, the chances of that ever happening would be so small, even if I did have the talent. Right. So I came home, I left before the semester was over, came home, and then I decided to go into computer science instead. So they weren't judging my music then, they were judging my, either the program worked or it didn't work. It wasn't a personal thing anymore. So, so that's what I wound up doing, and now I'm, CTO of a company. And so I love it.
Well, talk a little bit about, if you can talk a little bit about what you do on your day job. I know that you sort of connect technology to business. So can you kind of explain what your day-to-day is?
Yeah, so I kind of describe my superpower as kind of being the conduit between the business side and the tech side, because a lot of times they really can't communicate with each other. They don't understand each other. They get frustrated with each other. And I like being in between those two worlds because I understand both sides. So the business tells me I want X, Y, Z. I can kind of understand what that means and put it into tech talk, then talk to the tech team and have them implement it. That's what I love to do. Solving problems and solutioning is really my thing. And so today I as part of the company that I work for, I lead the tech team, and we kind of, it's mostly based in travel. It's really hard to describe. It's loyalty, but very travel heavy. Loyalty programs that are white labeled for companies.
Now, for people that don't know out there, Kristy is our company lead advisor. Now, what that means is exactly what she just talked about, which is basically connecting the business with the application. So she sometimes is our middle person in terms of making all of this work. And we sometimes go to her to sort of bridge the gap between the business and the understanding. So, she is phenomenal at that, and it's a gift. It is not something you can learn.
I love it.
And that is a compliment to you, Kristy, and the way you work.
Little did I know that first time that I met you in Philadelphia.
Yeah, let's talk about that story. I think you spilled your business cards all over the ground. I introduced myself. Remember?
That is terrific. I didn't even know this.
So my dear friend Andre, also known as Black Nerd on YouTube, was there. What's that?
I said who we all love.
Who we all love very much.
I love Andre.
And at the time I was living up in the Poconos, so it was about a 3-hour drive for me to get there. So I drove out, to spend the weekend at that show because I had actually just been to this is one of my I'll just say right now, RetroCon up in Pennsylvania is my favorite show of the year.
Yep.
And I just gone the year before, and I had met Michael Bell and John Machida, and who else was there? There's a couple other people there that I'd never met before.
Was more?
Every time I only planned to spend one day there. I wound up spending both days, driving back to home 3 hours, and then driving back again the next day, because I just loved it so much. The size of the show, the people that ran the show, the vendors that were there. I have to put my wallet in the car because I'm in trouble otherwise. Yep. And anyway, so that was the first time I'd gone. The next year, Andre was a guest, and that's when I met you in the lobby, and you were there with Alan Oppenheimer and
really,
and Pat Fraley.
Yep.
And Pam Clark was there.
Yeah,
also
Cammy was there too. I forgot about that.
Who was there?
Yeah, Cammy was.
Cam was there. Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah.
Who was the wrestler? Was it?
I don't remember. If it ain't VO, I don't know. I don't remember.
Really Armin, I think.
I love that line. If it ain't VO, I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, and then we met in the lobby. You introduced me as their agent. You went to give me the business card. The business cards fell all over. You picked all the business cards. I don't know what it was, but there was a click, and I was like, dude, you get me and I get you, and it was a great weekend, and we had so much fun. And I was like, these are the guys I love to work. And then you asked me to come back and help the next year. It's like, of course I'm going to help.
Usually I'm the Buster Keaton of our company, so that's really interesting to know. I got the hat.
Yeah.
It's funny for the people out there that know us, they know this, but Christy and I joke around that we're like twins separated at birth, like she's my long lost sister, because we totally get each other. And Nery, it's the same. It's like this weird simpatico like connection that we all have, and we all understand each other. I think it's because we love and appreciate the same things.
Yes. And
absolutely,
we share the same values, which is why I love working with you guys. And just you don't always see that in agents. It's usually about money and not necessarily the people. And customer service, and you guys are so there's integrity and there's customer service. You focus on the client because they're a person, and that kind of stuff. And that's the stuff that resonates with me. So,
and you know what? I'm so glad you mentioned that, Christy. One of our founding principles for our company is transparency and making sure that our client is aware of every little thing that goes on, even if they don't think it makes sense at the time. It's a matter of making sure they know, making sure you know, making sure we all know, so we're all on the same page. So when agents, like you just said, don't have that same sort of mindset, it really does surprise me that there's that lack of, it's just honesty. It's just so interesting. And it's unfortunately such a rampant thing in this industry to deal with. And as fellow agents or fellow peers of ours, it's very discouraging when we see that. So I'm so glad you brought that up.
It's funny because I always hear and Nery hears it too, because when we're at shows, and I'm sure Christy's heard it when she's standing around, but we'll be doing something and maybe we're like counting money or something, and we do it right in front of the client. The client like, why are you doing that in front? You don't need to do that. And we're like, well, this is how we feel comfortable doing it. We want you to see what we're doing. And it's funny because I think when we started the company, I kind of go back to what my because as you get older, you understand that, certain things work, certain things don't work, as you go along. And when I worked retail, one of the things that we had to do in a couple of the different companies was we would have to do bag checks. So we would get at the end of the night, people would come with their, their bag, or they'd have to one of the places made us turn our pockets out on our pants to make sure there's nothing in your pockets, or lift up your pant leg to make sure there's nothing in your sock. And to me, it kind of goes along the same thing. And I used to do it but when everybody would do it, I would do it after all of my employees would do it. And they look at me weird, like, why are you doing that? I'm like, I'm just as accountable as you guys are. Like, if I don't do what you guys are doing, then what's the point?
That's right.
I could be stealing too. So I want you to trust me just as much as I trust you.
Yep.
So I think it's kind of those, those different things that you learn as you go along that kind of implement these things that come up in your life, and you get these beliefs from them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, I was kind of hogging there.
No, not at all. And I think you're right, Chris. I think one of the things that Chris and I did, and Christy, you're very familiar, is that when we were starting in this business, we were watching what other agents did so that we wouldn't do the same thing they were doing.
The bad things.
The bad things.
Right.
Yeah. So we would make sure that, hey, if they're doing something, we're like, hey, that doesn't even look appropriate. And it's very common, and especially the way that some of these agents talk to their clients. Without saying any names, I just think it's, an atrocious practice to talk down to your client, even though you're trying to level with them. Sometimes treating someone like a person or a friend is the best way to go.
Yeah. And when I see that behavior, it makes me uncomfortable, especially because I know these people are so trusting.
Absolutely.
And they're taken advantage of sometimes.
Absolutely. It's terrible. And we actually, Nery and I have heard, you don't even want, if we could spill the beans on everything we know, people would be like, what? And, you have to kind of pick and choose your battles, unfortunately. The things that are like unacceptable, we're like, yeah, okay, fine. We got to, make sure this person knows.
You can say pick your battle or pick your war. It depends on who it is, of course. But, it just depends on how these people are. And all we have to do is just remember that we maintain our integrity. And that's all that matters, right?
Yeah.
And hope that it spills out to other people and they
absolutely
do it. Because
I think they appreciate that, I think. And that's why everybody loves you guys. Yeah.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Even your other agents that are your colleagues, the shows, obviously, because the trust is there. They know they can trust you.
And that's why we have you on board with us. Because you're just like us.
Absolutely.
I want to switch gears for a second, and we actually were talking about you when you were growing up and stuff. And I have this question. I think you and I actually talked about this when we were in Vegas for the show that we were there for. But I was curious, growing up, did you collect things like?
Oh yeah.
Because most of us collected toys that related to the cartoons that we watched. So like for me, it was like G.I. Joe, Transformers, and stuff. Did you collect that stuff growing up, or at least play it?
Yeah, my parents, I'm sure, will comment on the feed there. So I'm actually in my house. I have a room that I'm working on that I call the timeline of obsession. So it starts with He-Man. That was my first obsession, He-Man, She-Ra. So there's I still have most of it. I don't think I have everything, but and I need to clean a lot of it up. So He-Man was kind of my first thing, and She-Ra, Melindy, I think, might be watching. And then then there was like a Care Bear, My Little Pony time period, and then there was then the Ninja Turtle period started, which was probably fourth or fifth grade till now. I say that's still going now. There was a video game period, and I actually used to compete in video games for a while. And then, and miniature. I also collect fake food. I love miniatures, and I love especially fake food miniatures. I know. But that's my little quirk thing.
That's amazing.
And I can't even count how many I have.
I think your mom said the Smurfs were really the first.
Oh, the Smurfs too. Oh, yeah, that's true. She's right, actually. That's before He-Man. Yeah. I remember we used to go to the Eckerd drugstore, and they used to have the He-Man figures there. And every time we would go in, I would ask for another one, and she'd say no most of the time, but sometimes she would relent and go ahead and buy me one. Anyway, but yeah, so those are my pillars of child.
I've been blessed to be in the room of your timeline of obsession, so I got to see it.
It's getting there.
I haven't gotten to see it yet. I need to come down there and check it out.
Yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. So speaking of timeline of obsession, who was the first voice actor you met?
It was probably in person. It was probably Bob Bergen, because he was at that show. And maybe it wasn't. He wasn't at that first show, because I think it was Tom Kane and Greg was there, Greg Berger, and it was one of them. No, actually, sorry, I just remembered. the story. Actually, it was Wayne Allwine and Russi Taylor were the first two.
Whoa.
The story because I went I took a vacation '96 after I think it was right after I graduated high school. Went to Disneyland with a bunch of friends, and just by chance, in Disneyland up above, there was an art gallery up there where the Cinderella suite is now.
Yeah.
And there was a sign that said they were going to be there, and I'm like, this is like crazy because I had just started Voice Chasers, and so I knew who they were. It's like, oh my god, I got to meet them, and I went up there, and I met Wayne and Russi. You were just the nicest people you will ever, Russi, but
I know, yeah, Russi was ours,
the nicest people you will ever meet, and I bought a Carousel just so they could sign it for me.
Wow.
I spent money just so they could sign it, and we talked about Voice Chasers, and then Wayne started to write me about stuff and add, to his resume on the site, and we kept.
Do you still own that cell?
Yeah, I still have it substantially.
Oh man!
Yeah, and and then I saw him 2 other times. It was just so weird because we saw them when I worked so my first job was at Walt Disney World. I knew that I wanted to work there since I was 4.
Yeah.
When we went to Epcot for the first time. So Epcot opened in 1982. The day after opening, my parents went and they bought an annual pass. So they're still charter pass holders. And we would spend so much time at Epcot. And Epcot was a big part of my growing up. And where was I going with that? Yeah, so Epcot.
You said you met them 2 other times.
I worked at Pecosville Cafe. Was my first job ever when I was 16. And I said, I'm going to work here forever, which didn't happen. And then the World of Disney store opened, which was the biggest store. And I was like, this is all the stuff I already own. I can work here. And
your mom said you got lost there too.
Oh, that's right. The first Epcot trip, I got lost in the land. But anyway, yeah, I was working at World of Disney store, and I look over. I was working in the children's section, and Wayne and Russi were there. And I went up to them, and they remembered me.
What?
And
that's crazy.
And I was like, "Hi guys, you need?" And there was that. And then the last time I saw Wayne was the first Annie Awards I ever went to. I went in 2005, at the beginning of 2005, and Kevin and I weren't even married yet. When we were taking trips together and meeting each other in the middle, and went to that show went to the Annies, and they were there, and I got to talk to Wayne and Russi again, and they remembered me again. And then when I just saw Russi, where were we?
LA Comic-Con.
Comic-Con.
Yeah.
And she remembered me again. It was just so humbling. I just love them so much. Yeah.
So you brought up the Annies.
Yeah.
I think it would do us justice for you to talk about the Annies and your involvement with the Annies.
Well, I'm a voting member, but I mean, I've been going to the Annies. Well, 2005 was my first one. And then I started covering it for Voice Chasers and doing the red carpet, doing that for 6, 7, 8 years. And I love going, and animation just always has been a big part of my life, even though I can't draw a circle. But I just, and the voice stuff is all part of that. So, yeah, I love going, and just, again, animation is another industry where these people are so freaking talented. Nobody knows who these animators are,
Yeah.
Do animation and whatever. So it's a similar vein there. So.
What gave you the idea? I mean, for people that don't know, I mentioned it in the intro. Christie put on in 2016 a Voice Actors Rocks charity event where she invited numerous bands, which included voice actors, sort of that comprise these bands of, our voiceover community, and they raised money for charity. What gave you the idea to do that, Christie?
Yeah, I've been wanting to do it probably for at least 10 years, because I'm a musician too. So part of my collection and my data thing is I was like, wow, all these really awesome voice actors are also really, really good musicians too, which there's definitely a line, there's definitely a parallel there, right? So, because it's all pitch and rhythm and that kind of stuff. So, and they all have albums, and so I would buy Cam. Have you ever listened to Cam's album? It's really good. Yeah, you should get it. Cree Summer. All those.
Cree. I love Cree.
Cree has a great album too. They're all good. And so anyway, I've been wanting to do it for 10 years. It was the 20th anniversary of Voice Chasers. I said, I'm going to do it. I'm just going to do it. I cashed out my 401k.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
To pay for it.
That's
And I was like, I want to raise my, I don't want to make money off of it. I want to do this for charity. I decided VH1 Save the Music was a good charity for that because it's music education was very important to me. And I, went around to everybody that I knew that was a musician, that was also a voice actor. I forget what show that was. It might have been Rhode Island, because Debbie Derryberry was there and Jim Cummings was there and some other folks were there. And I went up to Debbie because I knew she was a musician. I had her albums too. I knew Jim was a drummer. And she said, I love that idea. Actually, Jim and I and Rob Paulson were in a band together like 20 years ago. We called it Tasmaniacs. I was like, oh my God, we got to like get you guys back together and like showcase you at the concert. That would be amazing. So
that would be awesome.
That was kind of the catalyst for the whole thing. And then I was like, I got to do this. So we rented out the Whiskey A Go-Go.
Yeah.
So unfortunately Rob got sick during that time, so he couldn't play with them, but they brought in Billy West, who's played with who's played with from the Beach Boys. He's played with the Beach and Robbie Rist, who you also know.
Yeah,
and,
of course.
Brought on those guys, and so they were the opening band, and then we had E.G. Daly, who's a gold record, at least gold, maybe
phenomenal singer.
She had a big career in music. So we brought her in. She did a solo act. Troy Baker, who has one of the greatest albums, in my opinion. I love that album. It's probably one of my favorite albums. I brought Troy in. Tom Kenny and the High Seas. Tom Kenny's SpongeBob.
And he's incredible. For anybody that doesn't know Tom Kenny and the High Seas, go follow him because he is just, talented inside and outside the booth. My God. And
one of my favorite humans. Honestly, without Tom, the whole thing would have fallen apart. He saved my butt so many times. But his band is just amazing. And then we had Jess Harnell's band called Rocksure. They mash rock and pop, pop and heavy metal together. And they closed the thing, and it was a dream come true for me. We had everybody there, Andrea, because everybody loves each other so much in that community. Everybody came out to see their friends play, and Maurice LaMarche was there, and Andrea Romano was there, and Bobcat Goldthwait showed up because he went to school.
That is pretty cool. I didn't know that.
We went to elementary school together. They've known each other forever.
With who?
Tom Kenny.
Tom Kenny.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
But weren't they on a show together? I think they were on a show together. I think with him and Bob Odenkirk. Am I wrong? I might be.
Was Bobcat in that show? Well, that was Mr. Show, but I don't know if Bobcat was.
No, you're right. That was Odenkirk and somebody else. Never mind. I take it back. But I think Bob and Tom had their own show.
Really?
Yeah,
I think so. I'm trying to remember the name of it. It was a comedy duo or something, right? Am I wrong?
Yeah, okay. And So it was just so amazing. It was my dream came true that night, and just being able to see everybody there and rallying together, and we want to do it again. So hopefully we're gonna, depending on how this pandemic things goes, but we're hoping maybe next year. That's a 5-year interval.
And we're hoping to help Christy out with that event as much as we can. So
there's so many other ones that I wasn't able to showcase that I want to showcase.
And definitely. And one of the things that I thought was so cool, Christy, when I was over at your house for the last vacation, is that you showed me the tour posters of every band that you made for the event. And for me, like to see a concert poster and see it specifically individually for each band, I thought that was the neatest thing.
We wanted that psychedelic feel. Yeah, and my friends at a design studio that I work with, L2, designed those posters for me. They came out so great. I just love them.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
That's so awesome. So Christy, I want to touch a little bit on the web development.
Sure.
You talk about that for us.
Oh well, my other job on the side, I've been doing web. I taught myself how to code back in 90, whatever that was, 5 or 6, and I've been doing web stuff since back then, and I've been doing a lot lately for a lot of voiceover people, which is wonderful, and I love collaborating with people. Again, it's the whole the business and tech coming together. I just love that piece. So
Can you tell us some of the websites you've worked on? Not the ones that we don't want to talk about, just the ones we want to talk about. Inside jokes at CelebWorx Live.
Yeah, I did Diane Pershing's website for her. I'm working on. We're almost launched, I think. Neil Kaplan's website for him. There's a prominent voice director I'm working on with right now that we're about to launch. It looks wonderful.
That's cool.
And
Very cool.
A bunch of other people. It's great, and it's a different way to interact with, because I want to promote them, and so it's a way for me to help promote them because I know them so well already.
And you'll do them justice. That's the key, is that every time you do their website, I know that it's going to be done well and perfect. So,
thanks.
Now, I hate to say this because it's like picking children, but who are some of your favorite voice actors?
I don't know if I can answer that. Am I allowed to answer that question?
Diane Pershing.
Well, no, she's friends with Diane. That's why. But yeah,
people I haven't met, maybe.
There you go.
Whatever makes it easier for you to answer the question.
Corey Burton's the top of my list.
Oh, of course.
Everybody loves Corey.
Now, Chris and I were lucky to meet Corey Burton and lucky to have short conversations with him. But
outstanding man.
Outstanding and very sweet. I mean,
very
I know that he's very shy, and but he provides so much inspiration to the voiceover community.
And when you meet him, you're in awe of that. Those amazing voices come out of this man. You're like, it's like meeting Frank.
Absolutely.
Show the people that I love most, I think, are the ones I can't recognize show to show. Eric Bauza, he's newer, but I mean, he's been doing it for a long time now. But yeah, his star is just gone crazy. I love it.
We met Eric Bauza when he was just starting to be a voiceover professional, because he was from the art side of the industry, and then he carried over. So he used to go to every Talking Tunes, and I'm talking about, I think it's 6 or 7 years ago, right?
Yeah,
so
he loves the community so much. I mean, not the community, but the art form so much. Not just the animation part, but the voiceover. Actually, my first time meeting Bauza was at the I Know That Voice documentary premiere that I went to. I went to the cover of the red carpet for that in Hollywood, and he was there. And Tara Strong, who I had been, corresponding with for years, I finally got to meet in person. She said, "Hey, have you met Bauza yet?" I said, "No." I met him. He said, "Oh my God, it's such an honor. I used your website all the time when I was coming into the industry." I'm like, "Dude, that's the greatest compliment you could ever give me, ever."
That's terrific.
Yeah. I just love him so much. He's such a good person.
And it's funny, small world, Christy, but Chris and I were at that event too. So that's kind of fun.
How crazy is that?
Isn't that, it's so nuts.
I'll have to look. Yeah.
And along the same note, what are some of your favorite animated movies and TV shows? I mean, I know that you have the timeline of obsession, but is there something that wasn't included? Because some shows and some shows and movies don't have merchandise. So
that's true.
Like, we're talking shows or movies?
Either one. Animated shows or movies.
Differentiate. Well, shows is Turtles and Animaniacs and that kind of stuff. That was very big part of my childhood. But movies is harder. Iron Giant, probably.
Of course. I love Iron Giant.
God. I don't know if I could pick. Rescuers Down Under is a big one.
I just watched that last night. I just watched it last night. It's amazing.
That's how Kevin and I knew we were going to get married, because I met him, and it was both our favorite movie, and he had it on Laserdisc, and we watched it together. I was like, dude, we need to get married. Because
and I know for a fact that's exactly how it happened. For people that don't know Kevin and Christy, that's totally their relationship.
Yeah.
If something needs to be done, oh yeah, definitely we got to do that. So I really believe that's what happened.
Yeah, because it was kind of in between, Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast, and everybody kind of forgot about it. It wasn't promoted at all. The marketing was junk, but it's such a beautiful film. And I got to talk to Glenn Keane finally. My friend David Dirks introduced me to him at an Annie Award show, and I was so starstruck. It was usually I don't have a problem talking to people, but with him it was crazy.
And the musical composition of that movie is actually
Oh,
beautiful.
the song score is so wonderful. Oh,
And
yeah.
it's so subtle. And, you know, I was watching and the performances, Frank Welker, who
Yes,
plays
first Joanna.
Joanna. Oh my
And
God.
yeah. Oh,
So
yeah.
good. And his comedic timing, it just jumps off screen.
Yes.
And then of course, George C. Scott is the bad guy. So you can't ask for a better bad guy. Just a great movie. And of course, Bob Newhart and Eva Gabor. And of course, if you've seen, you know, the original Rescuers, or you saw even the Aristocats, you know how beautiful and enchanting Eva Gabor can be. So
I think it might be the only time I like the sequel better than the original.
you know, it's so funny because we watched both last night, my family and I. Sorry for going off track, everybody, but my family and I watched both last night, and it's so interesting because we hadn't seen it in over a decade, and it's so amazing to see something, especially in the turmoil and climate we're in right now, to see some sort of that friendly, good humored kind of content. And it was so interesting to see the difference of tone and pace from the original Rescuers to
Yeah.
Rescuers Down Under,
Totally
and
different.
totally different. So, yeah, that was it.
Have you been playing any games or anything? Are you a video game player?
Well, not as much as I used to be. I used to, again, my parents will probably comment. I used to play NES all the time, and I, you know, competed and stuff. But and I don't really have much time anymore. But I'm playing Animal Crossing recently.
Yeah.
Everybody seems to be playing that, Christy. I'm so,
So.
you know, I'm upset because every time I try to go buy a Wii, which I try to impulse buy or stress buy, there's no Wii's in existence. Switch. I'm sorry.
Right now.
See, I feel like a fool.
No,
but yeah,
quarantine, everybody needs something to do, so they've all been buying up the Switches. Yeah.
Yeah, the Switches. Yeah, there's I guess a universal shortage on Switches. So
like toilet paper.
Yeah, exactly.
Paper switches, paper towels.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Christy, how do you like doing conventions? Like, is it something? Can you talk a little bit about it? Because you're actually one of the people we send out with our clients, and you know, kind of explain your experiences with people.
Oh well, I mean, like I said, I've been going to cons, you know, since '98. I've been to a lot. And I was there, you know, as a guest at first, and then I was, you know, as press and covering stuff and doing interviews and when I could. But the opportunity you guys have given me to what's the word? I don't want to say sit with because it sounds weird, but to interact and, like I said before, watch the interactions with the actor and the you know, the fan is, like I said, it's my life's work right there in front of me. It's, you know, and I just love it. And I get emotional hearing people's stories because I understand that. And the fact that, you know, people come up to them and know who they are is like, that's what I've been doing for 20 years. It's finally happening. You know, we're not all the way there yet, but we're getting a lot closer. And conventions are, you know, a big reason for that.
Absolutely. Is there any advice that you would want to give those that want to get into the industry?
Into the voiceover industry?
Yeah, the voiceover industry.
Well, I could never do the job. I'll tell you that much. I don't have the talent for it, just like drawing. Could never do acting. But just, you know, from what I've heard and talking to people and doing interviews, I mean, it's all acting. And so, you know, it's not just about a funny voice. It's about creating a character. And I'm not the expert here, so I'm just, you know, talking what I've heard. But I mean, you can tell when someone has the talent. I've sat in a lot of workshops too. So I've gotten, you know, to audit and just kind of watch the workshop students and the teacher. And there's maybe one, sometimes maybe two people you go, they got it. And most people don't. They think they do, but they don't. It's very, very, very hard. And it's very difficult to get into that circle. And you have to be in LA if you want to do animation too. So, I mean, so I don't want to crush anyone's dreams, but just know that that, you know, it's like Zootopia, you know, where Nick says, they come to Zootopia thinking they're going to do X, Y, Z, but they can't. And that's happens a lot. And people don't realize the talent that it takes and the work that it takes and to do it. So.
Hey, Nery, I think we got to start doing some questions.
That's what I was just gonna say. We're gonna go to the fan questions.
Yeah,
and
fans.
Roger says, "Woohoo! Yeah, Christy."
Roger.
I love Roger.
Jeff Burns says he loves Christy.
I love him too.
Jeff.
Andre Smith says Christy.
Andre.
There's no questions though.
I know.
Yeah, I know. We're working on it.
There's some in there. Trust me.
How do you come up with voice actors, rocks, and voice chasers, and why? We already talked about that, Saki, but I hope I covered it.
He asked that one kind of early on, so
yeah,
we covered that.
Roger says, "I love hearing about the process." I said, did I say process?
Chris Anthony.
Process. Chris Anthony says, "Go, Christy! You're an amazing girl."
We love Chris Anthony.
The people at the top are always the nicest.
It's true. There's definitely a lot. Like if you drew a graph, you could tell that the people that have the most talent have the least amount of ego. And because I don't think they don't feel insecure. They know they can do it. There's definitely a correlation between those two things. And most voiceover people that are in the industry, zero ego and talent is crazy.
Yeah.
I also think there's a correlation when it comes to agents in the industry too. So,
I think it's probably with anything. Where if you want to insecure and prove yourself, then you're
absolutely. It's exactly one of those things that people tackle in the business. Suzanne Bradley says, "How can I become a voice actor?"
I think that's probably for all of us. That's not for Christy, I don't think. Well, the first thing, I'll take this one, guys. If you don't,
improv classes.
Yeah,
sure.
you want to take improv classes. You want to take acting classes. There's a lot of different outlets out there. I mean, D. Bradley Baker, Michael Bell. Doesn't Bob Bergen have one too? Nery?
Yeah. Bob Bergen has a class.
He has several. I've audited several of his classes. I can tell you, I've never seen him work like anyone work with people like that. I mean, there's one class he has. It's called voiceover. Jeff Burns can probably confirm. I think it's VO therapy, where it's almost like a therapy session, and people talk about their fears and their struggles, and he goes through each person. It's amazing.
Wow.
It was a huge eye-opening. And then the one I sat in, there were people that were working in voiceover in that class with him. It's just so good.
But that's kind of the base. I mean, Pat Fraley has one too, but that's kind of the basis of where you start. And you got to remember that, I mean, we talked to Appy about it a couple of weeks ago, and that's probably the person you want to hear from, but it's tough business to get into now because the pool's gotten bigger and technology has made it so that literally everybody could be. I mean,
there's a lot of technology for sure, and there's a lot of non-union pay-to-play sites that take advantage of people, and devalue the work, which is really sad. But the stuff like animation and film and video games and stuff, it's all.
I think it comes down to basically how much you want it and how much you want to work for it. It's just like anything else.
And for anybody that wants a basic overview, go to D. Bradley's website. I want to be a voice actor.com. If you want a step-by-step sort of approach, that's where I would go. D. Bradley's website, D. Bradley Baker's website. I want to be a voice actor.com.
Yep.
Now, next question is your mom. Talk about celebs who become voice actors and how they're different from full-time voice actors. I love this question. I love it.
This is a tricky question because are we talking about stunt casting?
Now, I will say, I'm going to preface this conversation so it'll help this conversation go easier. There are some celebrities that when they're cast as that character, there's nobody in my mind that should have been that character other than that celebrity.
There are certain studios like
Pixar for sure.
Exactly, where they're casting for the character. Sometimes they're a bigger name, but for the most part, they cast for the character and not just for the name. Then there are other studios, in my opinion, like DreamWorks, where it's just stunt casting so they can slap the name on a poster or a commercial. But what my thing is, I don't think most people are going to the movie to hear Brad Pitt, right?
No, absolutely. I don't think so.
They don't want to hear Brad Pitt. They want to hear the character. because otherwise it's, you know, jarring where you're like, whoa, why is Brad Pitt coming out of, you know, that animal or whatever. So, right?
Yeah.
Especially some of the and a lot of, you know, big name, you know, celebrities, you know, think it's an easy gig, and then they get in the studio and they realize, oh boy, and you know, especially when they're doing a group recording session, you know, they're guest starring on a series and they're in a group recording session and they're with, you know, Rob and Frank and whomever, and they're like, holy cow, you know, and that's why if I can make an exception, Mark Hamill, who is an exception here because he's a well-known on-camera guy.
Yep.
But he always talks about, you know, when he does these, you know, voiceover sessions, that he's humbled by the talent in there, and he recognizes it. And did you ever see the movie? The comic book
the movie that Mark Hamill did? I haven't seen
it.
it.
He cast all voiceover people.
I take it back. I've seen it. Rob Paulson's in it. Maurice LaMarche is in it.
Yeah, he cast all voiceover people in on-camera roles because he wanted to showcase that these people like have huge talent,
right.
But you never see him, right? And so, Jess Harnell's in that movie, and there's a lot of people in that movie.
I was trying to remember other people that take roles. Like, there's a perfect example for me in SpongeBob. Ernest Borgnine and Tim Conway are Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy. Yeah. I can't imagine anybody else do those two people.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, there are some people that are just naturally character actors. I think those character actors that are on screen
are those characters though.
Well, right. That they do the best in those roles. Like Clancy Brown's a good example.
Like Mr. Potato Head. I mean,
Don Rickles. Yeah.
Don, you know. He's Mr. Potato Head.
Maybe.
I think, but here's the thing: how many people can do Don Rickles' voice or something close to it?
No, nobody.
I know some guys that can do it.
Of course, everybody does a Christopher Walken impression too. But I mean, it's all about you know, being able to be a good character. Like Robin Williams is a good character actor, right?
Oh yeah.
And you know, he was able to get into that role. So.
I'm looking right now. Forgive me as I'm going down the.
Oh yeah.
Jack DeLocke.
Jeff Burns just said Fred Willard. That's another good example.
Fred.
Of course, we just lost Fred. Practicing and tiptoeing with voice acting, very soothing to hear industry leaders preaching integrity. Well, I'm not an industry leader, but I'm glad that Christy can comment on it.
I'm not an industry leader either. I'm just, you know, I'm on the other side of the glass. But yeah, I think
Jeff Burns
carries to anything.
Jeff Burns says to this day, voice actors rock is still the best thing I ever volunteered at.
Yeah, we're gonna do it again.
Keone Young says Carrie Walgreen and Mary Elizabeth McGlynn have a band.
Yes, they do. It's called Slaughter. So Kari loves the band Slaughter, and her band is called Slaughter Her. You guys haven't seen her yet, have you?
I've seen, actually, it's funny. This is really funny. Somebody I worked with when I worked at Sports Authority, I was on his feed, and he's in Carrie Walgren's music video.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, hey, wait a second, I know both of those guys.
So talented too. Oh my God. Yeah, her band is definitely going to be part of the next show that we do. So.
Aaron O'Connell says, Christy, who's your favorite turtle?
Oh, turtle?
Michelangelo.
Well, that was my favorite when I was a kid, was Michelangelo. But since I've matured,
Townie.
It's now Leonardo. Well, Townie, I love her. Townie is one of my favorite people too.
Yeah.
But
Townie's amazing.
He is amazing.
And I'm trying to say, Stephen Powell, which is me basically reposing the question we had earlier. Who would make your Mount Rushmore of voiceover actors and actresses, and why? Steve Powell for the win.
How many are we talking? 5 or 4?
Well, so
5.
5? Okay.
But we'd have to differentiate. I mean, do they have to still be living or not? Because there's 2 different Mount Rushmores, I think.
Just put them all together, Christy.
Because
it'll give you a little bit more wiggle room not to upset the people that are alive.
Okay, so I'll do the, you know.
Are we doing it live?
It sounds so obvious when I talk about the old school folks, but you know, Mel Blanc and Dawes Butler and June Foray, those folks, would be on the old school one. Today, if we're talking today, Corey, Frank, Jim Cummings.
This is where it gets tough.
Absolutely.
Now there's a conflict of interest here. You know that, right?
Of course.
Absolutely. I'm not going to name anybody.
Anything.
We're not going to say anything. I'm not naming anybody that's not my client.
Maybe Frank. We would put Frank. On.
I already said Frank. Yeah.
No, I know, but I'm telling Nery that we would put Frank no matter what.
Oh yeah, Frank is. It doesn't matter that Frank's not our client. He would be on the.
He would be on
the Mount Rushmore. Yeah.
Jeff Bennett.
Wow.
Okay. Wow, that's interesting. That's really interesting. I like it.
I noticed Johnny, none of our clients are on there, by the way.
By the way, guys, for people that don't know,
conflict of interest.
Jeff Bennett is the voice of Johnny Bravo. For people that don't know.
Oh, he's so amazing too.
We got one more.
I wish he would do more shows. Trust McNeil, probably.
Keone Young said BJ Ward.
Oh, BJ's too. That's the thing. I can't. It's hard to pick.
It's so tough.
So many. Like I'd have to do it by decade. Like this is the 80s Mount Rushmore. This is the 90s Mount Rushmore. This is because I can't.
It is. It's really tough because Nery and I we do this all the time. Nery and I do, and I just don't.
It's very hard. So basically, what our joke of the day is basically whatever client called us during quarantine that day, that's who's going to be on the Mount Rushmore of best voice actors.
Melendi, mostly because it's like Melendi and then Keone because they call us a lot.
Aw. Diane called me, so she's on there.
Diane. Hey.
Melendi wrote, yes, I'm watching, and I'm loving getting to know you better. Came in late, and I may have missed it.
Melendi.
But do you ever do voiceovers too? You've been so involved in the industry, and thank you.
Never, and I never had any desire to do it because I knew there's no way in the universe I could ever do that, and I leave that to the professionals. So.
Christy, we want to thank you for coming on. You were terrific. Is there anything that you want to plug before we get off?
No, but I thank you for having me. It's been so
follow
fun.
her. I follow her. If can people add you on Facebook or
sure?
Facebook, Kristy Sproul. You can go to voicechasers.com.
On every social platform. Don't go to the website. The website's actually been kind of abandoned a little bit just because I've been working on it. It's old, and it's just taken so long with everything else I have. I haven't been able to get back to it, but eventually I will. And it'll look nice again and be updated. So mainly we're on social media right now until that's done.
So follow her on social media. Christy, we love you, darling. Thank you for everything. Thank you for everything you've ever done for us.
So much.
And we can't, there's not enough words in the American lexicon to explain how important you are to us.
Thank you.
So we're approaching the end of our show. And before we take off, see, I can't even form a heart, but mine looks like a kidney bean, for God's sakes. But before we take off, Chris wants to tell you a few things.
All right, guys. So our next show will be planned for next Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific, and we want to announce our special guest for next week. It's going to be none other than Mr. Bob West, the original voice of Barney the Dinosaur.
Wow.
I think
also a good
graphic for that right now.
We don't have a graphic because Bob would have killed me if I picked the wrong one. So
and sorry, I got to jump in because we got to talk about Thursday, which is our other show called Yo Joe Raps. It's about G.I. Joe. And our next guest on Thursday is going to be one of our favorite people in the world, the amazing Keone Young, who played Mr. Storm Shadow, on everybody's favorite. I mean, everybody loves Storm Shadow.
I love him.
So that's one you definitely don't want to miss. We love Keone. We're going to have a lot of fun. He's great
so
to
many
listen
stories
to.
too.
There's so many stories. Yeah.
Please tune in on Thursday. So once again, I'm Chris Arsaga, and you can follow me at The Real Arsaga, in the words of Will Smith in the movie The Pursuit of Happiness, where he played Mr. Chris Gardner. Don't let somebody tell you you can't do something. Not even me. You got a dream, you got to protect it. People can do something themselves. They want to tell you they can't do it. You want something, go get it, period.
Amen.
And this has been Nery Lemus. You can follow me at The Real Nery Lemus on Instagram. Just leaving you with a small reminder and safe reminder always. Keep your feet on the ground, always reach for the stars, and never forget to stay inspired. Night, everyone.
Stay safe out there, everybody. We love you.